Welcome to episode 15 of the Buckeye Bar Guys. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
We have a big show tonight as we get ready to break down and review the Penn State game that's getting ready to come up. How you doing tonight, John?
I'm good, Mike. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. We're getting into late October now. You can definitely feel like Halloween's right around the corner with the weather.
The weather has been crap. Yeah. I mean, call it what it is. It's been raining like nonstop.
I'm pretty sure it's rained every day this week.
It's been horrible.
So
it's cold. It's wet. My dogs are getting mud all over my house. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's definitely been. I mean, this is it's weird that this should not be the second game of the season. Because the second game of the season, you're still used to. It could be 70, 80 degrees sometimes in September. So
I mean, what do you figure? I mean, probably give a bye week somewhere within these first 2 months. So probably like week 7.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, you think
either 7 games in or this is the 7th one.
Yeah. And usually we always played on Halloween. So, I mean, this is.
And a lot of times it's actually been against Penn State, too.
Yeah. A lot of years it's been Penn State. So, I mean, this is or that weekend going into Halloween. It's either Halloween falls on that weekend or it's the weekend heading into Halloween. Usually it's the last weekend. Like last year we played them the week before Michigan.
Yeah.
That was like the weird year. Usually you play them at the end of October. It seems like most years.
I feel like, was it 18? Did we play them early 18 also? But that was early 18, not also, because I feel like that one might have been like week 5.
There has been years where we've played them like in week 5 or 6, like early October.
Weren't they the week after? It was at Tulane, the game you and I went to?
Yeah, I think so, but I'm not 100%.
I feel like there might have been a bye week in between there though. Yeah, so I mean, this is usually when we play them. Is just usually you have like 7 games in. Of course, last year, we had luck of the draw. We got them before the Michigan game. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was for anybody saying that any fan base is complaining about their schedules and stuff like that likes to forget that our finish last year was Penn State, Michigan, and then the Big Ten championship game, which ends up being Wisconsin. So
and not for nothing. I mean, the years before that, if Michigan State doesn't fall off the rails like how they were projecting to go over the last couple of years, I mean, that was a hard game too.
Yeah. So we're going to get into the Penn State. We'll talk a little bit about here the Penn State Indiana game. So Penn State did lose last week on a controversial.
Yeah, that ball's out. The tip of that ball is out before it crosses the plate. They should have won that game.
One thing I will say about it. So, I mean, they showed a million different replays of it. He basically had the ball was standing up on each other. So the tip of the ball, the bottom tip of the ball touches out.
Yeah.
Right before the top touches the pylon. So that's what I saw. It should have been game over. Penn State wins, but they called it a touchdown on the field. And I've always been one of those guys that have I've been really hard on refs when I'm in the replay booths. Been like, the whole point of that sometimes I think they look too much into
right.
stuff.
It's not to find something to recall the play.
Like if it's that hard, if it's that difficult,
then you got it right.
They called it a touchdown on the field. So and I think I even tweeted it out. They've been like, if they go by their letters of how they judge their things, this should stand. And
yeah.
So, now, the one thing that's been kind of making me a little weirded out is there's like 2 camps of Buckeye fans right now. And this is not probably everybody. It's just, just being on Twitter, you're seeing stuff. There's the camp that we're going to absolutely destroy Penn State, which is like, I mean, have you been around for the last how many years? I mean, even last year wasn't a bludgeoning. I mean, that game ended up being a lot closer than what it seemed like in the first half it was going to be.
Right.
Besides the Clemson game, doesn't that end up being or does Wisconsin end up being closer than that? I mean, I mean, we only beat Penn State by 11?
I think Penn State's the closest game of the year.
Yeah. So it's, I mean,
Wisconsin, I feel like we end up winning by like 13.
Yeah. I thought we got a little bit
14.
Yeah. I think we beat them by a couple more points than what we ended up beating Penn State by. But I mean, the 3 years before that. I mean, there's literally, I mean, we could be 3-0 in those games or be 0-3 in those games pretty easily.
And we're lucky enough to be 2-1. I mean, we are lucky enough to be 2-1 because
the one that we lost, we should have won probably, and the two that we won,
they controlled those games.
I can't believe we ended up winning them. So, I mean, there's no reason in anybody's head that anybody should be thinking that this is just going to be a walk through the park. And then you got the other camp that it's doomsday that Ohio State or Penn State lost to Indiana because they're going to be so much more prepared for this. I don't like that camp neither because, like, I remember some of those fans last year when Wisconsin lost, and the first time around we ended up beating Wisconsin pretty handedly in that game. So it's like, I mean, give me a break. I mean, you're still Ohio State. You're still, in my opinion, the better team on the field.
If you get up for the game, and I don't know why you wouldn't get up for the game, you still have the better shot to win the game. So, no, I'm not a big fan of that either. And then the other people that I found were the people that thought because it's an 0-1 Penn State, now this is hurting Ohio State's chance to make the playoffs now. And that's just, that's craziness. Yeah. I mean, if Ohio State wins out, like, they're fine. That you don't need an undefeated Penn State to beat them week 2 of the season. Like, I could see if it's like week 7 and you wanted that undefeated Penn State at the end of the road there for you, but 0-1 Penn State in week 2, that's not going to make or break the season. Yeah. But this actually could break Penn State's season if they do lose, because this is an eliminator for them. Yeah. You would figure.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't see Ohio State losing 3 games if they win this one.
Yeah, no, me neither. I mean, in a crazy season, I still don't see Penn State even with two losses being able to push into the playoffs.
No, I don't either, unless I'm crazy. Like, unless everyone else has a 2-loss runner-up in their conference. Yeah, that's really the only way I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have a couple 2-loss teams and then maybe, a couple other of the considered elite teams maybe lose out on because of some COVID games and,
Which, I mean, if you think about it, though, the SEC is already on path to do that.
Yeah.
If, Bama wins out, whoever they beat in that championship game, I would think, I mean, they are going to have 2 losses because I'm not sure there's anybody in the East that's still undefeated.
No, because, I think Alabama is going to walk to the SEC championship game pretty easily. I mean, you can definitely tell that they started a few weeks prior to Ohio State because they're starting to seem like they're getting into midseason form.
Of course, they're down Jalen Waddle now. Which they got the talent around him, but that guy is. I mean, you can't even describe what kind of difference maker he is when it comes to just. The deep ball or the return game. Yeah. That guy is he is so. I mean, they lost so fast.
Take your pick, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. Losing either one of them for an entire
that would
season,
hurt.
That would be a big blow, even with the depth that they have behind it, because there's a lot of unproven depth. I mean,
and Alabama's kind of set up the same way. Alabama actually has a little bit more proven depth than what Ohio State does. But still, taking out that home run threat like that's a hard one, even though it seems like Alabama, all their guys are like that. You just throw it up and then they're somehow behind the cornerback and they run 60 yards for a touchdown.
Yeah. So Indiana beat Penn State 36-35 on that last in the overtime. It was the second overtime, right? Or was second? It was the second part of the first.
Yeah, because Indiana knew that they were toast.
They went for 2. So, I mean, it was a smart decision on Tom Allen's part. Sometimes I always get weirded out when the lesser team, quote unquote lesser team, doesn't do that in the overtimes and go for the win at this.
Right. I'm not sure how. I didn't really watch the game, so I don't know if Penn State is decimated outside of Noah Cain, who we're going to talk about later, but. I don't know what they were looking like. I mean, it seemed like they finally started getting control of that game. It seemed like they had a lot of bounces that went Indiana's way throughout the game, especially when you pull up the stat lines. So I get why Indiana did it. And just like you, I mean, if you're not really, and I don't think Indiana, I mean, I know Tom Allen's a very proud coach. I don't think he believes his team's making the playoffs. So I don't know in any game why he wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. So to kind of get into just some of the stats of that game. So, I mean, and just what I kind of want to show to Ohio State fans is that, I mean, the first three quarters, there's parts of this game where you really thought Indiana might have been dominating this game. But when you look at the stat column, it really is not the case. So, I mean, Ohio State fans, keep that in mind because, they definitely, if you look just at the stats, you think that Penn State won this game by
killed them,
21 points.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they had 11 more first downs than them. I mean, 488 total yards to 211 yards, 238 passing to 170 passing. I mean, the big stats, 250 rushing yards to 41 rushing yards. So, I mean, where they got killed is, they had one more turnover.
Yeah.
And then they had penalty yards, much larger on the penalty side.
Honestly, where they got killed was just they didn't have the discipline to not go into the end zone at the end of the game. If the running back just goes down at the 1 yard line, they win this game.
Yeah.
So if they didn't score that touchdown, they would have been fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's just they were, better than them all over the stats. I mean, I'm just looking at these now. I mean, they had 4.8 yards a rush to 1.6, 6.8 yards a pass to 4.7. I mean, like I said, you would not think that this game ended up being as close as it was.
And I did see, and I don't know what kind of defensive line Indiana has, like what the talent is there. I know Allen's a pretty good defensive coach, but I did see Indiana only had 1 sack, which that tells me that there's a vast improvement going on with that Penn State offensive line, because that's always been James Franklin's Achilles heel, is he's not been able to recruit and coach up an offensive line. I know they got a new offensive line coach this year that they felt really confident about. I can't think of his name. It escapes me. But that's something that I think that's something to look out for, because that has been their weakness over the years.
Yeah. And then, so in kind of a similar fashion to Ohio State, even though Ohio State was more balanced with the running backs and the running game, that I mean, the quarterback ends up being their top runner. But I mean, he 17 for 110 yards or 119 yards, excuse me. That, I mean, so, and when you saw in the first half where Ohio State had some issues with Martinez and McCaffrey, that's an eye opener that they have to be ready for this now, because Clifford, I mean,
he can run and he can throw too. I mean, he ended up with like 240 passing yards, correct? Yeah.
It was 238. So right under 240. So I think that's going to be Noah Cain's the kid that just got injured.
He's out for the year.
Journey Brown's the other one. So he got injured prior to the season. So, I mean, they're down. They still have good depth there. I mean, they got young.
Well, they got good talent there. They're losing some depth, but
so they got good talent there. So you would think that Clifford is still, I mean, so it's a couple things that Ohio State really has to worry about.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure he's as dynamic of a runner as an Adrian Martinez or even Luke McCaffrey. But we saw it against, Clemson last year. If this is still, the Achilles heel of our defense, that Trevor Lawrence isn't a dynamic runner. He's a good runner that, he can get downfield. He can make plays. He's strong. He's fast. He's hard to tackle. But he's not a shifty guy. I mean, I think he surprises people with some of the moves he has, but he's not a shifty runner whatsoever, and they had trouble with him. So I'm not saying just because the guy can't, go laterally like Adrian Martinez can, that he's not going to be deadly against Ohio State, because he absolutely could be.
Yeah. And the thing, I mean, what's very big in James Franklin's, playbook is the RPO. So that's now the other thing you have to kind of worry about is that are we going to start putting linebackers, which we've got some concerns about the linebackers. Are there going to be linebackers on islands that they have to make a decision to come up to take on Clifford, or let the tight end or wide receiver, whoever, slip behind them to take an RPO pass? So, I mean, that's
it's scary. I mean,
it's things that the Buckeyes, I mean, especially you think back to 2018. I mean, there's things that nerve-wracking 2018 and 2017. That's, the RPO. I mean, McSorley, I mean, those games where we come back on, he dominates us in those games, in those categories.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I don't know. I mean, Well, we'll see. It's scary though. Definitely, the guy has the ability to throw and run on you, and we know Franklin loves to throw the RPOs at your defense. Especially you got guys like Baron Browning didn't have the best game when it came to reaction time. He kind of held himself back a little bit on a couple plays that he should have blown up, and was trying to be there to see where the play was going, when really he should have taken the blocker and put him back into the quarterback's lap a couple times, or running back's lap, just really try to blow that play up instead of trying to, get the guy downfield. So he was out of position a couple times. I know Tough was out of position a couple times. No. So yeah, I mean, that what you're saying, it's scary if we're having linebacker issues where the guys are missing assignments and they're not quick enough to recover.
Yeah. Now if those could be issues unless if we get ahead in the game, like last year, even though the game ended up getting close, where last year's Buckeyes team was different than the previous year's Buckeyes teams against Penn State. We started well early, so it got us up in the scoreboard.
Well, yeah, and you have to do that.
And the couple years prior to that, I mean, you get damn lucky. I mean, JT Barrett, I mean, he was a good quarterback. You're not expecting him to go perfect in an entire fourth quarter.
I mean, he might have had I don't know if he had over 300 passing yards against Penn State or not. It was close though, but you don't expect him to have that game.
And then the year after that, I mean, that's another crazy finish, and you just don't, especially in Happy Valley. I mean, I know the dynamics of this year's games is a lot different because, they're not going to be having any fans in the stadium.
Right.
But,
that's cardboard whiteout. Not as bad, but no. And if you remember that game, I think we're either like up or close to, like, it was a close game going into the fourth quarter, and then Penn State pulls away from us, and it's like, crap, we lost this game.
Yeah.
And then somehow, I mean, Benjamin Victor, for as much smack as people talked about him over the years, he has probably one of the greatest run after catches you could ever imagine, man. That guy you couldn't even touch him.
I still remember watching that one. That's just like, you just watch highlights of that.
I think I lost my voice just on that one play alone.
Yeah. So, I mean, Ohio State's definitely, they should win this game. I think they should win this game fairly comfortably, but I don't want anybody thinking that, they lost to Indiana, that, Ohio State's just going to have their way with them, because, I mean, quite frankly, when you look at these stats, Penn State shouldn't have lost to Indiana. That game shouldn't have been as close as it ended up being.
I'm giving this anywhere from, I think, a one possession win, anywhere up to 20 points. I think that's where I'm at.
I mean, I've been
maybe 21.
I think that's I'm going to be somewhere in the middle of that, where when we give them our final scores later in the night, at the end of the episode. So, anything jumps out? I know. What do you think about Penn State's defense?
They're aggressive. They're always going to be aggressive.
They got solid defensive linemen.
Yeah. I mean, they lost a great one. Is it Gross Matos?
Yeah,
oh my gosh, I couldn't think of his name. Of course, Micah Parsons and linebackers not playing, but no, they got
is that
Shaka? Oh my gosh,
what's that? Hold on.
I know they have Jason Owe, which he's a great defensive end, and then the other one,
Tony
Shaka Tony. Thank you. Yeah. So
he had 2 sacks, 2 tackles which are the tackles for loss. So 7 solo tackles for the.
Yeah, I mean he's awesome. So their ends are good. I'm sure their tackles are good. Linebackers, even without Parsons, is good. Just you're going to lose some depth now, and I know they have a good secondary, so it's going to be interesting to see what we can do. I mean, I just feel like we have the talent that eventually, if we're not breaking through all game, eventually we're going to figure out a way to do it.
Yes.
They got the talent to stop it, but they do not have the depth like they did because they've lost some pieces.
Yeah. Now we have heard now from a couple of Ohio State insiders that, I mean, this is where the challenge is probably going to be is our receivers against their secondary, because they have a good secondary.
They have a very good secondary,
and it's probably the best secondary Ohio State's going to play before they get to the playoffs. So I mean, and that's where after seeing the first game, Ohio State really needs to develop a running game from its running backs, because, you got to keep Penn State honest. And, early in that game last year, they did have some really good runs against them, and they were moving the ball very well. And they just kind of keep that up. And, Teague, Sermon, even if I know Steel Chambers sounds like has gotten some work, with the ones, according to some people, and he ran like he wanted to get some playing time, and
he ran well.
when
Yeah.
he got in that game. So I think they really need to try to establish a running game.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Rewatching and what I've heard from some other breakdowns is a lot of that actually wasn't on the line. That there was a lot that the running backs missed as far as holes that they should have hit. And also what you and I had talked about on our review of the Nebraska breakdown on Sunday night, that, Justin Fields, there was a lot of times that he should have, if they wore reads, he should have kept the ball. And just as you and I thought, I mean, it was confirmed that they were handoffs with the feign of a read to try to keep the defensive ends honest, which it really didn't work. We saw that, but but that was the play that, if it was a point or the decision to actually call a quarterback or a read option there, I think it would have been better, that he would have been able to pull that ball and go and picked up a couple first downs.
Yeah. And when listening to some of those, some of the press conferences and listening to some of the people, so if that is the thought, if that was the philosophy behind it, and I want to establish the running game with our running back.
Yeah, I agree.
Ohio State needs to have some reads in the playbook this week.
Keep somebody on. Yeah, keep them honest.
I mean, if now they hear you say that, Justin needs to have a shot to keep one of these,
right?
Because, I mean, he's got the speed,
especially with those defensive ends.
Yeah.
Because if you're letting them have that opening to try to fake them out like that, they're just going to feast on either of those running backs. I mean, they're both too good to give them those looks. So yeah, you definitely got to call a couple reads this week, just so Justin can, keep them honest. But no, the running backs, they have to establish something, because you got to confuse this defense. You got to move them up, or, if you got to open up that run game by spreading them out with multiple receiver looks, do that. But definitely run game is going to be crucial to this game.
So there was, speaking of the line, I mean, there was, glowing remarks about MPF, and, he just didn't stand out to me during the game. And I ended up last night for a little bit. I watched a little bit of the game over just because I had it recorded. So and he was pretty impressive at different spots. And so I didn't watch everything over again. It was just I watched a little bit, and I was jumping around here and there during the game. It's just that, they actually did look pretty solid, the offensive line as a whole, which is good, because I think where that offensive line is going to be at the end of the year, I mean, how they are starting to look, that, that's pretty good. And you can fix the running game issues with the running backs.
You hope so.
You have enough of them that hopefully, if Steele's starting to take some snaps, that maybe that's just going to light the fire under the other two, and like, okay, that,
I'm still in the philosophy that you still have to have a guy. And then if there's time that you can give someone else carries and they make the most of them, that's fine. But I still think you need to have a number one running back.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think you do too.
I mean, I don't know how.
I don't know if I don't know if they trust either one of them to be the guy yet. And
you got to give them some series, though. You can't just say, okay, you didn't make the most of series 1, so now Trey Sermon's going in series 2, or vice versa, Teague, Sermon, however you want to break it down. Give them a quarter or something.
Yeah.
Give them a chance to wear guys down, find something, get comfortable.
Yeah.
Figure out what works for them.
Yeah. So I definitely, I think we're both in agreement that they definitely need to get something more out of those running backs.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get to 215 yards rushing, you want one of your backs to be at 100. I mean,
did they even combine for 100 yards?
I don't have that one picked up. I think that they
maybe just
they were close. I mean, but it wouldn't be
it wasn't, but it's nothing crazy though either. So if they did, it wasn't by a lot that they went over 100 together.
Yeah, my phone's being weird.
So 48 and 41. So they got about 90 yards together.
Yeah. So, yeah, they gotta. One of them has to get to 100 yards on their own. I mean,
Jack Miller had 23 yards and a rushing touchdown. He's not even a running quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, he showed he has more wheels than I think anyone thought he did.
Yeah, which is what you're looking for in that offense. I mean, so much with these spread quarterbacks now, even the kids that get listed as the all pro quarterbacks. I mean, in spread offenses, you're expected to run a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, I mean, usually they're better suited for running game than they're not some of the statues that you think about in the old days. A lot of them.
I mean, Dwayne Haskins wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, but he was kind of a statue.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
I don't know much of a spread they actually ran in high school.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Jack Miller ran a spread in high school.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the big thing is definitely get the running game going, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing how the receivers do and how Justin Fields deals with a better defense than what they probably played last week.
You got two really good receivers, and you got many, you got a lot more than just two really good receivers. But if Olave is healthy, which all signs indicate that he will be playing, Garrett Wilson again, in the slot where we had both said he's going to be such a mismatch,
and he was.
It just seemed he was.
There was no question about that.
I see that happening again. But Olave is really a difference maker. I mean, he is such a good receiver. He's one of the top receivers in the country. So even if you do have good cornerbacks, good secondary help on him, I still think you're going to be able to get him to make a couple plays. I mean, Olave had over 100 yards.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, they did most of your damage, those two, for the receiving yards. But no, I'm excited to see what they can do. Going back though, once again, we got to get a running game going because that's our whole season. But if so many people have talked about first games are just first games, they're odd. You're looking at a 3-4 defense in front of you. You don't see them that often anymore. And last year against Florida Atlantic, J.K. Dobbins looked pretty pedestrian, and we know he's not. So
yeah, and you look what he ended up doing the rest of the season.
Right.
So
he had 2,000 yards on top of a not so great first game.
Yeah. No, I think that the one thing I don't want Buckeye fans now to get too caught up in is that if there is some struggles in this game, I just want to see I want to see one of the running backs get to 100 yards. I want to see, maybe Justin Fields maybe be a little bit. I mean, even if those were fake reads, I want to see now maybe a couple real reads to keep some of the defense honest. And I want him just to keep on progressing. But I also don't want people to get caught up if he throws an interception or if, maybe the running backs, one of them only gets to 90 yards. I mean, you are playing a good defense here.
Well, this is going to be a tough game. This is a game that is circled which actually I would like to talk about this more here in a little bit, but this is a game that's circled that this is going to be our hardest regular season game. So that's something you're expecting a good game. These guys have recruited very well. They have a great, game plan. They got a great team. So, I don't think anyone should really, just automatically think we should blow them out or get discouraged if there are any struggles within the game because they're a good team. You're supposed to play a tough game with these guys.
Yeah. Actually, if you want to get into them before before we start talking about the other Big Ten games, if you want to talk about your thoughts on
just a couple things on Penn State. I mean, we've already touched on some of this earlier, but I mean, like you said, we could easily went the last 3 years or 3 of the last 4 years easily could have went 0-3, 3-0, however it would have fallen. If Penn State wins those games, what does James Franklin's team look like today?
Well, he probably
has a couple Big Ten titles.
He might have Justin Fields.
He might have 3 consecutive Big Ten titles, maybe 4 if he has Justin Fields then. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to think about what that could have done for his recruiting classes. Does he get into a playoff? Does he have a good enough team with Saquon Barkley that he could have won a championship in 17? I mean, if they only have 1 loss, they're not. Alabama doesn't jump them to get back into the playoffs.
Penn State is a 1 loss in 17. If they're a 1-loss Big Ten champion, Penn State's going to the playoff.
Right. So, I mean, there's just so much that could have changed with those games. If you think about it, I mean, obviously Urban Meyer, the great coach that he is, he got his team back to win 17 and 18. And of course, Ryan Day's quarterbacks had a lot to do with that as well. But I think about that often. how different the Big Ten East could look right now if James Franklin called better games in 17 and 18. If his teams were able, especially in 18, if his teams were able to hold on and win those games, though, I mean, what are we talking about here? Like we're looking up to them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and it's that's what I'm saying. Like, it's kind of even footing. Like, you guys can't, we're still obviously better than they are, but it's not, you shouldn't think we're going to blow them out and get discouraged by a close game, because honestly, take that stuff into consideration. We're 2 plays away from them winning 3 out of 4 games against us, and the landscape of the Big Ten East looking drastically different.
Yeah. Unlike our rival, who likes to think that their fan base likes to think that they've been in close games with us over the last.
Here's the other point
that they have literally. I mean, Penn State has actually challenged us on the field.
So from Urban Meyer's time at Ohio State moving forward. So 12 and 13. I'm not really sure there was like that regular season game that really stood out to me. Maybe it was like Wisconsin. I think we played them both years.
Yeah.
Maybe even Penn State. I think those were games that was like, these are going to be our tough matchups. You know, these are going to be hard ones. Then you get to 14 and 15 and even 16. And you kind of 16, Michigan State's going down, but Michigan State's now circled as like that hard game for you. Like, this is the game. And then you get to 17, 18, and 19, and now it's Penn State. Like, when you look at Ohio State's schedule, what week are you looking at? And I know you know when Michigan is, but what week do you have circled as what's going to be your hardest, most competitive game? It's Penn State week.
Yeah, it's Penn State right now.
It's fascinating to me, especially with the trash talk that you get from Michigan fans, that they think Michigan's like on this. Michigan's just on a completely different level below where Penn State is. I mean, if you look at the hierarchy of the Big Ten, I would say it's Ohio State. I would rank Penn State number 2.
Yeah.
I think they are a better team than Wisconsin top to bottom. I think if them and Wisconsin played each other, they would beat Wisconsin most years.
Yeah.
Especially since Franklin's really got his team rolling. Then I would say probably, Wisconsin. I would rank Wisconsin by itself, and then Michigan, Iowa, Northwestern every now and then. Michigan State's probably falling below it, but they're on a tier down. So Michigan's like on the 4th tier of the Big Ten. But I think that's fascinating that, we have these rivals that historically are supposed to be amazing, and, they beat us these times, and we go into these seasons, and that's not even like the game we circle. It's like, that's kind of like the gimme at the end of the year. Of course, anything can happen in the game, but the game that we are most like anticipating, thinking that if we do have a loss on this schedule, it's going to be to Penn State. I don't know. I think it's kind of like
I know
kind of different.
Michigan State, you think about Michigan State in 15, but probably the 2 seasons where we really considered Michigan, that was probably as circled as much as it was circled. It was probably in 15 and 16 because, one was Harbaugh's first season, and,
which we killed him.
And I've always said that those 2 seasons have basically been Harbaugh's career as the Michigan coach, because it was Michigan State is what Mark D'Antonio is what ends up destroying Jim Harbaugh's Big Ten career, because him beating Ohio State in 15, that was a much different Ohio State team that Michigan played than Michigan State had to play.
Right.
And,
Michigan State beats Michigan in 15 also.
Yeah,
so
that's,
even though Michigan was pretty much controlling the game.
D'Antonio pretty much got him twice that year.
Oh yeah. He stuck it to him. Yeah, absolutely. But I just thought that was kind of interesting that, since Urban Meyer's been there, Michigan's not really a team that we've worried about at any point. I mean, like you said, 15, but we beat the brakes off them. Now, of course, though, Minnesota has given life to those Michigan fans. Yeah. So that's, I hope, I hope they went out. I don't know if they will or not, but I hope they get to our game undefeated. I'm good with that.
Yeah, we'll see. And then
it'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll see how good they are in this.
We will.
And when we play in December, and we'll see how good they are when they play Penn State. I don't know.
When is that game?
I'm not sure. I'm not going to dig through this.
No, yeah, I know. That's
we'll see how good they are.
Yeah, no. Well, We'll see. I was going back and forth with them this weekend. I don't believe it till I see it with that team.
Yeah, and a lot of people. There's a lot of. I mean, I saw. I had to say just won 52-17. I saw this guy. Michigan's a little bit better than we think they are, and Ohio State's a little worse than we thought they were. I'm like,
I know, well, that's what a guy said to me was like. I was saying that, Minnesota's nothing special. And he was like, is a Michigan fan. And he's like, well, neither is Nebraska. I'm like, we just beat them by 5 scores and we're bitching about what we did wrong during the game. Like, we're not acting like we won the national title like you guys are. Yeah, I mean, leave it to Ohio State fans to find what's wrong in a 35-point win.
And that's kind of like, and Day kind of threw that out there in his press conference this week. He's like, because he said a couple of the guys were hanging their heads a little bit after he's like, you guys just won 52-17. And there is a big strive. I hate to break it to our rivals and even to Penn State. I mean, Ohio State's just they're past the whole. We don't compare ourselves to those teams anymore.
No.
And, it's about beating Clemson and beating Alabama. Those are the teams that you compare yourself to. So, I don't want the guys hanging their heads after a 52-17 win, but I do respect the fact that they think that they didn't play their perfect game. I hope Michigan's players are taking note of that think that I hope they're not smelling their headlines a little too much, that thinking they're back because
but they do every year.
Like, I mean, we'll talk about Wisconsin here in a minute. They might the problem is they're probably going to get lucky that they're not going to have to play, they might not have to play Mertz, and even though he might be back for that game.
Is that week 3? That's because they got Purdue.
It's when there's a debate of when the 21-day thing ends.
Oh, because of when it would have started.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So even though it's supposed to start on your first failed test, even though the second test is what confirms it, it's supposed to be. So there's people saying that he will actually be eligible to play as of that day. So, I mean,
that's just crazy.
Yeah. So, but I don't think that he's a lot practicing. So I don't know if somebody's just going to throw him into.
Well, can't they start practicing somewhat in the last week of it?
Yeah, because yes, they can, because the whole point of that last week, like there was some confusion. Everybody thought that it's the whole last week is to help build you back up to be able to play. So
it's all crazy.
So we'll get to we'll save the Wisconsin Nebraska discussion game for their last because we're going to start talking about the Big Ten games here.
Yeah.
So we'll start with the Big Ten. So Michigan State. Michigan is a 24.5-point favorite according to the ESPN.
Who's home?
Seems Michigan looks like it's home. It's a noon game. I expect Michigan to cover.
I think though Michigan State's bad. They'll cover. They lost to Rutgers.
Yeah.
I mean, who loses to Rutgers?
And I don't
even think it was it even a close game?
No. Didn't feel like it.
So yeah, I'll go Michigan covers.
Yeah. Let me just pull that up real quick. They lost 38-27, and I am pretty sure it was not as close as the game he's even that dictated.
That's 2 scores. I mean, that's not close.
Yeah. So yeah, I expect Michigan to cover pretty good on that one. I mean, again, that's not saying anything about Michigan. It's just that's the state of Michigan State's football program.
Yeah.
And, and they're in a big uphill battle to begin with going into the season. We already knew that. But I mean, it sucks, new coaches, new coaching staff, and you don't get a spring.
Well, and your old coach kind of screwed the
pretty much screwed
them
with too. All right, so Purdue they're on the road and they're a 7-point favorite against Illinois.
I didn't see enough from Illinois against Wisconsin to really impress me with them. I mean, they had some plays felt like the first 2 drives they did okay. So I don't know. I didn't really watch the Purdue Iowa game. I know Purdue's receiver had a big day. Not, Rondale was hurt, so the other guy. But yeah, I'll go with Purdue in this game. What's the spread?
7. I think they cover.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't see enough from Illinois to tell me differently. So yeah, I'll go Purdue and I'll say they cover.
Yeah. The battle of 2 big winners from week 1. So Indiana is on the road to Rutgers. Indiana is a 12-point favorite.
I I do think Indiana is going to win. I don't think they're going to win by 12 or more, though.
Yeah, actually, I agree with you on that. I actually think that I think Indiana will win. But I think Rutgers, they got a lot of transfer players. They got a lot of.
I mean, something went right to score 38 against Michigan State when Rutgers is pretty much looked like they were playing Pop Warner for how long. So
yeah, and I don't know how good he's going to do at Rutgers, but I think at the end of the day, to all you Tennessee fans out there, you're going to wish that you had Greg Schiano over Jeremy Pruitt.
Man, I spoke the other week about that guy being like possibly someone that Michigan could try to lure away from Tennessee. Like, if you please do, I would love to continue to beat Michigan's ass. But man, that's a disappointing take on my part.
Yeah, and then finally, Iowa, who's at home, is a 2.5 point favorite to Northwestern.
Northwestern, man, they kicked the crap out of Maryland.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll go Northwestern wins it straight up.
And then, we forgot the Friday game. I'm like, we're missing a thing, but because they're Friday games. So Minnesota's on the road against Maryland. Minnesota's a 19.5 point favorite. I expect Minnesota to cover that one because
Maryland looked bad.
Maryland looked awful, and I'm sure Minnesota is going to want to show that they are better than what people know. Some people think, even though some people think that Minnesota is the best team in the. I mean, I know a lot of people pick them to win the West. I picked Nebraska until Minnesota. I mean, I think Minnesota. I've always said I think Minnesota, and I'm a little biased because I've heard James Laurinaitis speak about this on his show, and I actually agree 100% with that. How he put it, he just puts it really elegantly. I mean, it's a city, and if you can it's kind of like Ohio State. I mean, they'll never be at Ohio State's level, but it just sometimes these city schools that can offer so much more to players are better than the college towns. And so and PJ Fleck's there. He's an exciting coach. Kids like to play for him. That Laurinaitis, how he explained it is, Minnesota, Minneapolis is a place where you have a good football coach. He could build a good football program in a big school like that.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
No, I don't think that how some people are describing them. Like, I mean, if Minnesota was in the East, I mean, they are picked to finish fourth. So like, let's be.
I think PJ Fleck. I think he rode the boat downstream a lot last year. I think he had success against a lot of backup quarterbacks.
He did.
Yeah. So, I'll cautiously say Minnesota will cover. If they don't, though, I don't know. I'm off the PJ Fleck train.
Yeah. Now the Wisconsin Nebraska game was officially canceled today. I'm that
my Big Red fans, I am sorry, man. That is disappointing.
Yeah. You guys had a tough loss to Ohio State. I still think you guys would have lost by a lot to Ohio State. You guys did have some calls that went against you at different spots that I didn't think should have went against you.
But they absolutely would have lost by a lot.
So, I do feel bad that they're not going to get to play this week. I was really looking forward to seeing how they would do against Wisconsin. Like I said, I picked them to win.
I thought they were going to win.
Yeah. I picked them to win this game. And so basically what's going up in Wisconsin is they pretty much have an outbreak, but they haven't crossed into, according to what people are saying, they haven't crossed into red territory. So they're still below, they're what would be considered orange. But they also have 6 coaches that have it. And head coach Paul Chris being one of the 6. And so they basically have decided to stop when you're in that territory, it's up to you to whether you could stop to, that 7-day pause. And it seems like that's what they're choosing.
Now, do coaches have to sit out for 3 weeks? Or is that just a player thing?
That's just a player thing.
Okay.
I think as soon as
I'm like, what are they going to do without their head coach for 3 weeks?
I think once they didn't really get into the coaches, but
that would be stupid.
From what I've heard and from what I understand, I think once the coaches are negative, they might have to do a 14-day quarantine. But
yeah, well, I mean, that wouldn't make sense if the players got to do a 14-day and the coaches don't.
Yeah.
Why can't the players play when they're negative?
Yeah. I don't know. So I don't know how that's going to go.
It's all stupid.
Chris did say today that they could be ready for Purdue. Purdue's next week. Again, I don't know when it does. The 7 days count for today, or is it from yesterday? I don't know when they made the official announcement, if it came out today. So, I mean, have they been sitting already down? Is the 7 day began on Monday? Like, it would seem like if their 7 day pause ends next Wednesday or Thursday, it's going to be kind of hard to, if you think, to get a game in, that they're not allowed practicing until then.
They're gonna the doctor that built the $6 million man, he's going to be doing some operations on Jack Cohn this weekend.
Yeah.
They're not. I don't know if they're beating Purdue with a 4th string quarterback.
Yeah. And Mertz is definitely from all accounts. I don't know if they officially announced it, but I mean, I know Chris Dodds had it yesterday that, I mean, he's missing 3 games because
he's got the 2 positives.
Yeah, he's got the 2 positives. So that's what all the sources up there have been saying. So, I mean, that's what I'm going with, that he get the confirmed test that he has to sit out.
He had a great first game. He had such a great first game.
I mean, when I watched him play, I'm like, oh man, they got a quarterback that's got some touch, and
he definitely
found some open receivers, and
guy's got some touch on his throws. I was pleasantly surprised with how he found those guys in the middle of the field, and he kind of just put it wherever, like the only people that could catch it were his guys. So I was impressed with him. That's a shame he's got to miss the next 3 games after that showing.
Yeah. Now, where they got maybe whether he's going to be eligible to play against Michigan or not, it depends on when they decide. Does the positive test, when does he have to miss that game? Is he eligible to be back for that game? I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't know how. Some people are saying that he's eligible to be back that game, and I've heard other people saying that he's not. So it's like,
yeah, I don't think anyone really knows. I mean, this is what we thought could happen with the Big Ten.
Yeah. It just seemed like you never thought that it would be like literally the day after the first game for them. That
yeah, no, man, that just scares me.
I don't know who went out that night and did.
It might have been him. I mean,
visited his girlfriend or whoever, and I get it. College kids being college kids. Of course, it could have been one of the coaches. I mean, one of the coaches could have, just going home, seeing their family. One of their kids got it. I mean, you never know.
You're a sophomore. You're like the savior of Wisconsin. They think now we can throw on teams. No one's going to be able to stop us. We got the run game. We got the pass game. This guy, I mean, he's like Elway now. So, yeah, he's going around campus, meeting some girls. Gets the COVID. So, yeah, you got to be careful.
Yeah. So,
I mean, it sounds like Ohio State players are being smarter, but
yeah,
Wisconsin, they obviously, they didn't have bigger plans for this season.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It sucks. Like I said, it's hard to, and like I said, you don't know. Did it come from the coaching staff? Did it come from, a player? I mean, we don't even know if the player or a coach gave it to everybody, the people that got it. I mean, 2 people could have got it.
Yeah.
I mean, as we're seeing right now, as we're in a little bit, high clusters again, through the country, heading into, cold and flu season, where a lot of people thought that we could see spikes to begin with, I mean, some people have warned us that it could get bad in the October, November range, because that's when flus and colds get bad usually.
Sure, yeah. I mean, jokes aside, I feel terrible for the kid. I feel bad for anyone that has to miss games. I hate that. Like my biggest problem with the whole cancellation of the season was all about, these kids, their lives are better when they're structured and they're around their football teams, when they have, they have something to do. And I don't think Graham Mertz, like, he seems like a kid with his head on his shoulder. So I don't think this is going to like derail him as a person or anything like that. But that's something that really like bothers me when they take that away from them.
Yeah. So, I mean,
like, he's healthy. He said he doesn't feel sick.
I'm glad the season's back.
Yeah.
And we even said it then. We don't like how they brought it.
But this is kind of like the deal with the devil.
And this is, and what kind of sucks about this whole thing is when they redid the schedule for the first go around, and they said they were going to go to conference only, and they had bye weeks built in, and like, it was a good schedule. They literally had a good schedule. Like, and that why did they have to cancel
And I just
so quickly?
Well, if they only have themselves to blame, because the other conferences, I think even at that point, you knew the other conferences were going to wait a couple weeks before they started. I mean, maybe they didn't announce that stuff until after the Big Ten had postponed, but I thought that they did. And you always had that option that you could have moved it back till the second or last week of September.
Yeah.
And still had time.
Even the first week of October, you would have still got
you
a
still
couple.
had time to have a bye week.
I mean, even if your goal is, if they would have decided, well, even if they would have went less games than the other conferences and said, we're still only doing 8 games, but we're going to start first week of October, at least you built yourself in a couple weeks.
Right. You had time to do it. So,
and you just figure it out where you maybe you give everybody the same off weeks. So that way, if you had to do a makeup game, you could do a makeup game.
Well, they didn't have this stuff figured out until everyone started complaining and we had to get we got the season back. So,
so now move on to our game. So, we're going to go into our 3 things. So we'll start with offense. So what's the one thing on the offense that you feel like you need to see for Ohio State to be successful on Saturday?
What I have to see is I want to say something different than the running backs get going, but I really think that's important. And that seemed like the thing on our offense in week 1 that we were the furthest from, that was the weakness of our offense. So again, I'm going to have to go with, Master Teague or Trey Sermon actually get going with the run game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that too. The running game definitely needs they need to establish themselves with their running backs. Ohio State is Ohio State is who Ohio State is when you have great running backs. And I said this a couple weeks ago. I don't need Master Teague to be J.K. Dobbins or to be Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, you got guys that have been in the history of this program like Pepe Pearson and Boom Heron, guys that have done really well for themselves that weren't considered the superstar. And that's all we need them to be.
Right.
I don't need you to pretend like you're J.K. Dobbins. Just be Master Teague. Just like we said last week, the kid is kind of built how he's got that, Derrick Henry like vibe to him that he gets going downhill. So, they don't try to get Derrick Henry to be all, it
reminds me of Derrick Henry is Skill Chambers.
Yeah. That's and he and Master T could be like that.
Yeah, Master T could.
And I wish that's how he would run, because that's like I just think of back in the 2014 championship games when they would do those tosses outs, and like there was be like one cornerback out there, and then he'd do Olay, because it's like he's like, I'm not taking that dude on. That dude's already coming at you full speed, and so I mean Master T could be that, and I don't want them to. I think you need, and Ryan Day is really good, that you need to adapt an offense to what fits your guys the best, and don't always try to outsmart. Just don't think like you're outsmarting them. And I don't need him to be J.K. Dobbins and looking for, where's my cutback lanes, find your hole and run through it.
Yeah. Master Teague, I think the Achilles might be, that's a big deal.
And that could be that too. I mean,
I don't know if he can get the push off his foot, get that burst going.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I think we'll have a better, even though Penn State's going to be even a better run defense than Nebraska.
I would expect them to be.
Like, I hope that we have a better feel for this, because then over the next couple of weeks, I don't want us to get lost in that, I mean, we're going into a stretch of schedule then where we're playing, lesser competition. I don't want us to get lost in the fact that Master Teague has suddenly cured himself of,
No, I get what you're saying. This is kind of like the game you got to win.
All right. So defensively, what do you think? What's your one thing on defense that you want to see?
I want to see Baron Browning. I want to see Baron Browning look like he belongs out on the defense. If there's a sweep coming, pulling blocker coming down that he sees, blow it up. I want to see him to be able to, see something, think, and attack. Sometimes it looks like he gets lost thinking out there, and that lets someone engage him. Be the attacker, be the aggressor. I want to see Baron Browning make the plays out there.
Yeah.
And I know he can. And the guy's got all the gifts that if he can just get that one spot where he can think a little less out on linebacker, he's going to be good.
Yeah. It's a good one. To me, I think it's kind of the linebackers is, they're going to be playing, with Clifford's ability to run the ball, Franklin's love for the RPOs. They're going to have a lot of, Penn State's going to have, the tight ends, there's none of their tight ends come to mind who they are.
Pat Fryermuth. He's damn good.
There you go. So they got good tight ends there. They always have good tight ends at Penn State.
Yeah.
So, and that's a lot of things. Those three things right there, RPOs, tight ends, and running quarterbacks at times have really been bad combinations for our linebackers over the last couple of years. So, they have to come out with a good game plan of how to deal with them.
Yeah. Can I put a little slash and say Dallas Gant also?
Yeah.
See if, because I don't know. I think that's a guy that's just kind of he's on the line there of really getting ready to crack into getting some meaningful reps.
He could be honestly, I think he might be the Steel Chambers of the defense.
Yeah.
I think they both showed a lot in that first game that, if some of these veterans, maybe don't start playing a little differently, these guys might getting
kind of
reps.
Kind of the same sentiment that I need to see that Dallas Gant belongs, but for a different reason, because it's to kind of usurp one of those linebackers that are out there.
Yeah. All right. And then the last of the three things, who's just the one player, just any side of the ball, who's the guy that needs to step up, be the breakout player, whatever, continue on their progression.
Garrett Wilson, he's the guy I'm watching for, because I think, again, you're going to get times that things are going to get a little hairy, maybe get a little sideways for our offense that we're having trouble running the ball, and he's going to bail out the offense and open things up again. So once again, I think Garrett Wilson's the guy I'm looking for, that we need him to break out. We need him to be that difference maker. He's such a mismatch in the middle of the field there. He's big, fast, runs great routes, has amazing hands. He caught a ball that was tipped. Yeah. When do you ever see that? Yeah. You never see that. Yeah. You never see a ball that's tipped at the line that the receiver comes down with it. I mean,
normally it's a pick, but it's
not a joke, but those guys from Texas, though, I know they play a lot of 7-on-7 there. Well, holy crap, can those two guys, him and Jackson Smith and Jigba, they can track a football like none other.
Yeah.
Tony Gerdeman said this, that when Jackson Smith, when he took that targeting hit and the ball flew away, you can see the entire time his eyes are still on the ball, even though he just got knocked in the next week, and you see where it goes. How do those guys track the ball so well? Who can track a ball running full speed after it's been tipped at the line of scrimmage?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Garrett Wilson's my guy. Yeah. I think, like I said, he might be my breakout guy to watch every game this season.
For me, I'm going to go with Zach Harrison, and I need him to step up because he's supposed to be the freak that's supposed to take over this year on the defensive line. And I know that we're probably going to see similarities between Penn State's offense as what we kind of saw from Nebraska's offense, that there's not going to be a lot of drop back and get time there. But, Chase Young, he did a lot more things than just go sack quarterbacks, get your hands up in the air. Zach Harrison's a big dude.
That was Chase Young's first game back, though, and I believe he had 3 sacks.
Yeah, so, he get your hands up in the air, knock balls down, make good decisions. If they're going to run a screen, sniff the screen out. And I need him to be a dominant player in the defensive line, because where this defensive line goes, that's where our defense is going to end up going. Yeah,
I would say I need just a defensive end to step up and really be that dominant force. He looks like the one that should be it. So I would agree that, if it's anyone, I need him. But Tyreek Smith, Tyler Friday, Javonte John Baptiste, Jonathan Cooper, the old man of the group, I need one of those guys to be a difference maker.
Yeah.
And it seems like, again, we have questions of depth, but Haskell Garrett and Tommy Togiai seem like they're going to be okay in the middle if you can get some guys ready to back them up.
Yeah, actually, because of how Garrett played last week, I have a much better good feelings for the now. I need the defensive ends to show up. I think we're fine at defensive tackle. I think that they have two solid guys there that will help bring the other guys along.
You still need those other guys to get that depth behind them because you can't trade great for bad. Like you need something at least that you can give those guys a little bit of rest because you can't get those guys off the field if you don't have reliable backups.
This will buy having two solid guys there that buys them time to get those guys built up. It's a lot more iffier if you only have one solid guy in Togiai and you don't have anybody else.
And that's kind of like we were scared of that at the beginning of that game, but then Haskell started kicking ass in the second half of that game, or end of the first half. I like they did slide Tyler Friday down like we thought they would.
Yeah, I like that too. All right, I think before we call it a night, we're just gonna give our score predictions real quick. So what do you think? I have their Buckeyes are 12-point favorites.
All right, so I think they cover, and I'm actually gonna give myself. All right, so I think they're gonna at least kick one field goal. I think Penn State kicks two. Let's say 38-20.
I like the score. As I was thinking through this, I know I said earlier that I think I'm going to be in that middle range. I actually think Ohio State kind of handles them. I think that Penn State, Penn State will challenge. I mean, it's not gonna. I think it'll be a pull away game. It'll be tighter earlier. But I'm gonna go with I'm gonna say 38-10 because I think Ohio State's I think their defense is really gonna show up. I think that defensive line is gonna show up, and they don't have a lot of running backs. Their running back depth is down, and I don't think Clifford's gonna go for 119 yards on them.
I don't think so either. I think they're gonna fix a lot of problems on defense that they had last week.
I still don't. I mean, we'll see how the middle of the defense does. I don't see Clifford able to challenge the outside corners. And
no, I don't know if he's going to try to challenge them. Like I don't know a lot about Penn State's receivers. I don't think they got a lot going for them though.
Yeah.
At least the elite level that they're going to be challenging Ohio State's cornerbacks. I was very happy with Sean Wade and Seven Banks.
Yeah, me too. So that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to say 38-10.
Garrett Wilson still getting a return touchdown.
Yeah, I said that. He almost had one last week. I think he's going to get it. He actually he did that little his little stop one too, where the guy ran right. Like that was something else.
Garrett Wilson's on a different level.
Yeah. I just want to remind everybody to just remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and subscribe to the show on the podcast network of your choice, Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, TuneIn, Radio.com. I mean, we're on all the major ones. I think everyone besides iHeart, which I'm still trying to get on iHeart, but that's seems like Clear Channel doesn't like us so much because I've put in the show twice each time. But regardless, we're on all the other ones. So
yeah, that's all right. So let's go out. Let's hammer Penn State, guys. Beat Penn State week. Buckeye Nation, thank you for coming out tonight to the Buckeye Bar. Mike's taking down some water. I'm John.
I'm Mike.
OH.
I-O. Well, thank you for watching here, the Buckeye Bar Guys, here on the Buckeye Bar Talk Network. Please subscribe to the network, and when you get the little notification bell, just hit that. Hit all notifications. That way you'll get alerted when all the new episodes come up. Comment, like the show, and we hope you join our community. Come join our bar.
Like, comment, share. I'm John. That's Mike. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.